Lists are a way for us to store many pieces of information in a single variable. In Python, lists can be made out of anything, so you could have a number in one entry and then some text in another. So let's look at how to create a list in Trinket blocks. So first, let's create a variable, and we'll name it my list, or something like that. And then under lists, we want to create a list with, and then it'll give you a certain number of options. You can add or subtract options by clicking on the little settings button and dragging items into the list block or removing them. So let's create a list with 4 items. And for now, let's make our list entirely numbers. So I'm going to create a list with 4 different numbers. But you can also add text or anything else inside a list in Python, and it will be no problem. So let's make this one 4, and I'll make this 7, make this 2, and this one 13. We can access positions in the list by getting their index. So go to lists, and we're going to do in list get blank as blank, and let's print that out. So in list blank, we need our myList variable to go in there, and let's get the first value. So let's get number 1. Now this is a quirk of Trinket that I'm not too much of a fan of, so if you run that, it'll print out 2. So in Python, lists are what we call zero indexed. That means that the first entry of the list is actually index 0. So when we get to doing text-based Python, if you want to get the first entry in a list, you'll pick it out at entry 0, not at entry 1. And you can see that if you view the code. So here we're getting the entry from my list 1 minus 1. So it's accounting for their numbering by subtracting 1 to make 1 the first entry instead of 0. But just keep that in mind when we go to text-based Python next week. If we do 2, then it will print 7. If we do 3, it'll print 4. And if we do 4, it'll print 13. So that's how you can access different entries of the list. You can pull them out by their position in the list. Another thing we can do is iterate through the list with a for loop. So if we go to loops and we do for each item I in list, and we put in our list my list, then we can visit each entry of the list and manipulate it in some way. So let's print out 2 times the entry. So go to text and print, and then numbers, and let's just multiply each entry by 2. So for 2, we grab a number and put it in there. And to access the items that we're iterating through, we use this variable. So let's rename this variable to something more descriptive. So let's say current number or something like that, just so we know what we're looking at. And then we can go to variables and drag in current number in here. So now if we hit run, then it's going to print out all of our numbers times 2. So what's going on here? For each item in the list, it visits that item, so the first one would be 2, it multiplies it, then it goes inside the for loop, and then it multiplies it by 2 in this line and prints it out. Then it says, okay, is there anything left in the list? It goes back to the top, it grabs the next number in that list, and it repeats the same thing. So now we have 2 times 7, and it prints out 14. And then it goes back up, it says, is there anything else in the list? There is, there's 4. So you do 2 times 4, which is 8, it prints it out, goes back up, does the same thing for 13 times 2 is 26, and then on the last time it goes back up, it checks to see if there's anything else in the list. There's nothing, so it skips what's inside and goes on to the next thing. So that's how a for loop is used with a list.